written and they're marked, and I'd like to read them into the record, and then I can begin calling my witness.
All right, that's fine. Before you do that, while you're getting ready, for purposes of the record, let me announce that based on the motion by the defense at close of testimony on Friday, I have asked that media remove the camera that was directed to the defense table as well as the microphone. So the only media camera, video camera, is located in the back of the courtroom. There is still a still camera to my left.
Yes, sir.
All right. And all the other orders and requirements that I have put in place remain in effect, including 2 more that I signed this morning that I don't expect are going to come into play today. All right.
And have these orders that you signed been distributed to the media?
They have been. He was doing that while I was giving them to you, but I don't know if media in here got them yet.
What they cover will not be any of the witnesses today,
All right.
so we should be okay to proceed, and we'll cover it
All right.
as we go.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, there are several stipulations between the parties. State's Exhibit 236, and we have marked in between court reporter, so there will be numbers in between, but is a stipulation of fact regarding GDI GFI, which is Digital Forensic Investigator Garrett Morton. And that just states that the Digital Forensic Investigator Garrett Morton at the GBI Cyber Center conducted a forensic enhancement of both the UFI video from the residence at B32, also known as the dumpster video, and the video from UGPD trail camera located outside of Building S. The enhancements have been admitted, and one hasn't been admitted yet, and one has been admitted, so I'll fill that out as we go. And I'll circle back to the court, but both enhancements, one has already been admitted, and you saw that it was part of a global thumb drive with Detective Norris, where the UFI video from the dumpster had been slowed down, and I'll put that exhibit number in here. The trail cam video is coming up this afternoon, and I'll put that in here to complete this record. So that stipulation has been signed by counsel for the defendant and counsel for the state.
And Judge, the only thing that I would add to that is that subject to our objections prior. I think that's just about the enhancement to prevent the witness from having to come in and testify about that.
Previous objection is noted for the record.
The next stipulation of fact is a stipulation of fact regarding Special Agent Thomas Haas, and that's H-A-A-S, of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. This stipulation is marked State's Exhibit 239, and that stipulation is that on February 22nd, 2024 at 10 p.m., Special Agent Haas delivered a thumb drive marked and entered into evidence in State's Exhibit 242 at trial, so that's in my right hand right now, and I'll move to admit 242, to Sergeant Tim Stewart of the Athens-Clarke County Police Department. This thumb drive has 24 digital images of photographs taken by Special Agent Daniela Stewart of a latent print impression seen on Lake and Riley's cellular telephone. These digital images started with DES 566 and ended with ended with image DES 589. Furthermore, on February 23rd, at 2024, at 4:21 p.m. So on the 23rd day of February, at 4:21 p.m., Special Agent Haas obtained a consent form from Argenis Ibarra, and that's A-R-G-E-N-I-S Ibarra, to collect a sample of his DNA. Special Agent Haas swabbed Argenis Ibarra at the Athens-Clarke County Police Department and then sealed the swabs. The swabs were transported to the GBI laboratory for analysis. The swabs of Argenis Ibarra are marked and entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 241, and Argenis Ibarra's consent form is marked and entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 240, and again, this stipulation is marked State's Exhibit 239. So at this time, the state would move to admit 239, 240, 241, and 242.
We have no objection to those, Your Honor. other than to clarify that this does not waive our daughter motion on the fingerprints.
Noted. Let me make sure so this is a new 140 and 141 because I've got a.
Did it say one? I meant to say two.
Okay.
Two. I said two. Okay.
You did say two.
239, 240, 241, and 242.
Okay. Thank you.
And then finally for this morning, that there will be additional stipulations to come, but for this morning, this is the last one. It's been marked State's Exhibit 237 for the record, and it is a stipulation of fact between the parties regarding the prior testimony on October 11th, 2024 of ACC PD Sergeant Timothy Johnson. Sergeant Timothy Johnson testified on October 11th, 2024 at the motions to suppress in the above referenced case. All parties hereby agree to admit his testimony from that hearing and the exhibits that were introduced during his testimony at that hearing into evidence at this trial for the fact finder to consider. The testimony of Sergeant Johnson from the motion to suppress will be made part of this trial record. Signed by counsel for the defendant, signed by the state, and we would move to admit State's 237. Behind State's 237 is State's Exhibit 238. And State's Exhibit 238 is a transcript from that October 11th, 2024 hearing where Officer Johnson testified, and it's isolated just to Officer Johnson's direct, cross, redirect, recross, and the exhibits that he entered at that motions hearing. So we've agreed to adopt that transcript, and Sergeant Johnson will not be called as a witness in this trial because we've adopted his prior testimony.
No objection and an agreement. Just to clarify, for the defense is not stipulating the accuracy of his testimony, but we do agree that he doesn't need to come and re-say what he's already said.
Very well. Noted, and those will be admitted.
State calls Sergeant Joshua Epps.
Got any blank sheets on there? Evidence sheets.
Yes, sorry. If you could raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Please take a seat, state and spell your first and last name.
Joshua Epps, Joshua. Last name's Epps, Epps.
Where do you work?
University of Georgia Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
Roughly 6.5, almost 7 years.
What are your duties and responsibilities?
I'm a patrol sergeant, so I supervise roughly 12 to 14 patrol officers, as well as I'm on the bomb team. I'm a certified bomb technician, and I'm on a special response team, which is kind of like SWAT or active shooter response.
Were you called to an apartment complex at 2085 Millage Avenue in Athens, Clark County, Georgia, on the 23rd day of February 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell the court at about what time did you get called there?
Roughly 8:32 in the morning.
Who called you there?
Tim Johnson requested that through a radio system for a UGA police officer, and I was close by.
Who does he work for?
Athens Clark County Police Department.
How long did it take you to get on scene?
Maybe 5 minutes. I was in the 5 Points area, so I wasn't far away.
When you responded, were you in uniform as you are today?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you respond in a marked patrol car?
Yes, ma'am.
When you responded, were you wearing a body cam video?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it recording?
Yes, ma'am.
When you got there, who, if anyone, did you meet with?
I met with Tim Johnson, and I believe there was maybe 1 or 2 other Athens Clark County officers on scene as well.
And was there an individual there who had been detained?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that individual's name?
Diego
What's his last name?
Ibarra. Yes, ma'am.
And did you have the opportunity to interact with Diego Ibarra that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have the opportunity to observe Diego Ibarra that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you could tell the court approximately how long were you with Diego Ibarra that day?
That day, several hours, probably upwards of 5 hours.
And without telling us what he said, did you ask Diego Ibarra questions?
Yes.
Did he answer your questions?
Yes.
And for the record, in what language were you communicating with Diego Ibarra?
I was using a translator to speak Spanish to him. I can't speak Spanish, so I was speaking with one of my Spanish-speaking officers who was relaying the questions to him.
At some point, did you call 2 Spanish-speaking officers out?
Yes, ma'am.
Who are those officers? What are their names?
The first one was Mason Bridges. He's a corporal. And the second one was Rafael Sayin. He's a corporal as well.
Could you spell Corporal Sayan's last name for Madam Court Reporter?
Sayan.
And are both of those individuals native speakers
Yes.
of Spanish?
Yes.
So they were helping you translate.
Correct.
I want to approach, oh, sorry, I don't have to ask that anymore. One moment. I'm going to approach and hand you a few things. First, I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 177. Do you recognize 177?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
My body camera footage.
Have you seen it prior to today?
Yes, ma'am.
Is a fair and accurate recording of your body cam footage on the 23rd day of February 2024 at the apartment complex that we just discussed.
Yes, ma'am.
State would move to admit States 177 and request permission to publish parts of it.
Your Honor, I'm going to have to say, unlike other body cams we've seen in this video, we have, I would say, a contested witness, Diego Ibarra, and then later Arcanis Ibarra giving statements. To the extent that those statements are on the body cam, we have to object.
What we could do, Your Honor, we don't intend to offer the statements, the content of those statements until and after those witnesses testify. So at this time, we can play those portions of the body cam on mute, so that we were just offering this part of the body cam for the images that you see, and we don't have to play the audio. The only time we intend to play a part of the audio for State's Exhibit 177 is with the next witness who's going to talk about statements made by this defendant at the scene. These statements made by the defendant, which is not hearsay.
It will be admitted for that purpose under those restrictions at this time.
And so I'll mute it when we're talking to the other 2 residents. The audio will come back in when this officer enters the residence. So if at any time, if you feel like I have violated that stipulation, I'll just ask that you make a contemporaneous objection so we can.
Yes.
Thank you. Handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 178 through 194. I'm going to have you look at all of those and then I'll ask you some questions. Do you recognize those documents?
Yes, ma'am.
What are they?
They're photos that were taken on scene that day of different individuals on scene.
Are those photos that you took that day of, first of all, Diego Ibarra?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there also a photo of Arcanis Ibarra?
Yes, ma'am.
And are there photographs of Jose Ibarra?
Yes, ma'am.
And do all of those photographs, State's Exhibit 178 to 194, do they all accurately depict those 3 individuals as you saw them on February 23rd of 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
State would move to admit States 178 through 194, request permission to publish.
No objection.
They're admitted, you may.
I'm going to play part of States 177, and for the record, Sergeant, and for counsel, and for the court, we are going to use the timer at the top right corner of your video to discuss any timestamps on the video. Is that timer in UTC?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is UTC?
It's 24-hour time.
And at 13:36 is when your video starts. Would that be what time in Eastern Standard Time?
1336 would be 136, I believe.
Right, that's UTC.
Right. Oh,
So what time did you get on the seat?
Okay, sorry. 832.
Okay.
That's right.
So 1336 UTC is 8:36
836.
a.m. in Eastern Standard Time, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just so we have that straight. Your Honor, if you could toggle over, we're going to play a little bit of 177, and for the record, it's going to be muted, so there'll be no sound for the first parts of it until this officer enters, and I'll clear the record up for that. Oh, you know what? It's not plugged in, so it is there. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to make sure it's muted. Okay. So since 177, the very first video that we're playing, is on mute, tell the court what we're looking at here.
I'm arriving on scene initially. I'm about to meet with Sergeant Tim Johnson, Matthews Park County Police Department.
That individual we see in the frame at 1337, who's that?
That is Sergeant Tim Johnson. I can't remember the name of the other officer in the background, and that is Diego in the red sweatshirt.
And what apartment number is Diego standing out front of?
D126.
Does Sergeant Johnson show you an image at some point in this encounter with him?
Yes, right now. He's showing me a still frame image from video that they had recovered that I didn't have at that time.
And that still frame image, do we see it in your screen at 1337?
Yes, ma'am, on the phone.
And was that an image taken from a dumpster nearby?
Yes.
So he shows you that image, and then what do you do?
This is news to me. I was coming on shift roughly maybe an hour before this. So I relayed that to my superiors who were about to pull up, coincidentally, and then explained to them that, hey, they've got footage. At that time, I was not aware that they had already been aware of that footage.
The footage that was shown to you by Sergeant Johnson, what, if anything, was significant about it to you, and then what you were observing for yourself on Diego Ibarra?
At first, videoing it or reviewing the video, the still frame photo, Sergeant Johnson informs me that the image shows a male holding a hat or having a black Adidas hat, and then he informs me that I couldn't necessarily see from that distance till I get closer to Diego, but that Diego is wearing an identical hat, a black Adidas flat bill hat.
Did you make any observations about the hat that Diego was wearing?
Once I got closer, yes, I noticed on the back what I believe to be dirt on the brim.
And was that significant to you?
Yes.
Why?
Because I was on scene when we located Lakin the day prior. She did have a lot of dirt, mulch, and things like that on her body. And I felt that if an individual was wearing that hat and was touching Lakin in that manner, dirt could have been transferred to the hat by moving the hat.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit for the record. At some point, you began talking to Diego Ibarra through your interpreter.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And how would you describe Diego Ibarra's demeanor with you and with you?
I mean, he's compliant. He's not posing any issues. Obviously, there's a block there through communication. But based off his physical mannerisms, I'm not really getting any deceptive behavior per se. I was aware at this point he did provide a fake green card, so he was detained for that.
Right.
He seemed to understand that we were detaining him for an investigative purpose. There appeared to be good rapport between him and officers, especially with Officer Bridges there, who you see.
If you could, do you have the pointer in front of you?
I'm not sure if I do.
Oh, here we go.
Thank you.
Point out to the court at 1342 in your muted video that we're playing. Where's Officer Bridges?
He's right here in an identical uniform that I'm wearing.
All right. And the one closest to Diego in this frame.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead. So you talked to him at some point. At some point, do you decide to obtain a search warrant for the apartment and to freeze the apartment?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, based on the fact that he was wearing that hat, the time frame that Tim Johnson encountered him was within 24 hours of the murder. He was walking back towards the general direction of campus, which was concerning as well. He somewhat matched the description of the male seen in that photo, discarding of what I later learned was evidence found in that dumpster.
And specific what evidence?
A sweater or a pullover of some sort with blood on it
Okay.
and hair.
Okay. And did you ever see that evidence, or you were just informed of it?
No, it was picked up throughout the middle of the night. I was there all day the day before. They sent me home to get a sleep cycle, and I
Okay.
was the supervisor this day.
All right.
So I never saw the evidence throughout the night.
All right. Go ahead.
And
What
then
about the proximity from the dumpster to Lake and Riley's body?
the dumpster to Lake and Riley's body, probably rough estimate 500 yards.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So at some point, when you're with Diego Ibarra and you decide to get the search warrant, first of all, how do you communicate that to get the search warrant?
I go and talk to my superiors and I ask them, because they're maybe 20, 30 yards away in the parking lot at another vehicle discussing. I think they were talking to some GBI agents and other agency partners. And I asked for clarification of, at this point I gained knowledge there were other individuals inside the apartment. I wanted to start getting resources in and confirming that yes, we are going to go ahead and surround it. A warrant's going to be sought. And I need other translators here because from what I'm gathering, no one else speaks English inside the apartment.
And how many other individuals did you believe to be inside the apartment?
At this time, 3.
And could you see them from where you're standing?
No, not without being intrusive of sticking my face up to that window, which we didn't do. One, for an officer safety standpoint, but also...
Do you see the window? You said the window. Can you point the window out? Is
Yes.
that, and that's again 1342. Is that the window to D126?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to roll a little more. At some point, do you start asking Diego questions about whether he has any injuries?
Eventually, yes, I did.
And do you take pictures? You said the window. Can you point the window out? Is
Yes.
that, and that's again 1342. Is that the window to D126?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to roll a little more. At some point, do you start and then show you some photos? First of all, did you you mentioned to us that there was a fake ID, so you knew he had given a fake ID. Tell us a little bit of that process.
I didn't obtain it myself. It was provided to Sergeant Johnson when he located him and was identifying him. Sergeant Johnson provided it to me and stated, if you look at it, there's 2 different dates of
You mentioned to us that there was a fake ID, so you knew he had given a fake ID. Tell us a little bit of that process.
I didn't obtain it myself. It was provided to Sergeant Johnson when he located him and was identifying him. Sergeant Johnson provided it to me and stated, if you look at it, there's 2 different dates of birth listed. There was one vertically on the side and then one listed with the rest of his identification information.
So did you agree with Sergeant Johnson's assessment that this was not a valid form of government identification?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of. What are we looking at here now at 1358?
I believe at this point my captain, Seth Robinson, was entering.